There's something sacred about the first moment you sit alone, completely unfiltered, and finally speak to Allah. Not in perfect words, not in rehearsed prayers, but in raw honesty, in that trembling voice that only He hears, in that silence between sobs where your soul finally says what your tongue never could. And in that moment, something inside you softens, breaks, then begins to heal. It's not magic, it's mercy. It's the gentle return of a heart that's been carrying too much for too long. And maybe you've been smiling around people, functioning like everything's okay, distracting yourself so no one sees the storm inside. But when you're finally alone, the age catches up to you and you feel the heaviness settle in your chest, and all you can do is sit there wondering, why do I feel so broken? That's your signal. That's your moment, not to collapse, but to open up, to speak, because healing doesn't wait for the perfect time. Healing begins the moment you speak to Allah. Not just recite, but truly speak. Honestly, unfiltered, softly, sincerely, like a friend, like a child returning to a parent after being lost for too long. And the beauty of it is, He already knows what you're going to say, but He still wants to hear it from you. That's how deeply He loves you. You don't need eloquence. You don't need a list of the right phrases. You just need your heart. Your tired, heavy, overwhelmed heart. The one that's been trying to cope in silence. The one that's been screaming behind your smiles. That's the heart He wants to hear from. That's the heart He's been waiting for. And the moment you open your mouth, the moment you whisper even a word, Ya Allah, I need you, something shifts. It's not the problem disappears. It's not that the pain vanishes, but you begin to feel lighter. Because now you're not carrying it alone. Now your soul remembers what it was created for. And that feeling, that relief, that's the beginning of healing. You've started your return. And even if the storm continues, even if nothing changes around you, something changes inside you. Because you've spoken to the one who never left, the one who listens instantly, the one who doesn't need you to be perfect, just sincere. And maybe that's the most beautiful part, that your words don't have to be many, they just have to be real. And if all you can say today is, help me, then say it over and over again. Because every whisper counts, every tear matters, every breath that turns toward Him is recorded. You've already begun your healing. Don't stop now. Keep speaking even in your silence. Keep whispering even in your pain. Because healing doesn't come from escaping your emotions. It comes from expressing them in the right direction toward the one who heals hearts. So take a breath, say something, anything, because that's all it takes. The healing began the moment you spoke to Allah. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one private, trembling moment when your chest is tight, your thoughts are loud, and your soul is tired, for you to look up and say, Ya Allah, I can't do this without you. And in that very moment, something within you begins to shift. Not everything around you, maybe not even the pain that brought you here, but something inside you, your heart, your breath, your burden, starts to feel just a little lighter, a little softer, because you finally handed it over to the one who knows how to carry it. And maybe the world doesn't see it. Maybe you've gone through so much in silence that even you started to believe your strength came from enduring alone. But it's not true. Real strength doesn't come from silence. It comes from surrender. And that surrender begins with speaking, with opening your heart, to Allah without filters, without perfection, without fear. Just honesty, just truth, just you. Because the beauty of speaking to Allah is that He doesn't need you to have all the right words. He just wants your sincerity. The tears you cry when no one's watching, the confusion you carry around that nobody understands, the heavy feelings you can't even explain. He knows all of it already, but still waits for you to speak. Because there's healing in the act of letting it out. You were never meant to carry everything inside. You were never meant to solve every hardship on your own. That tightness in your chest, that pressure in your mind, it's not weakness. It's your heart's way of reminding you that you're overdue for a conversation with your Creator. And even if you haven't spoken to Him in a while, even if you feel like you've been distant, lost, distracted, just one moment of sincerity can undo years of silence. Just one honest whisper can open a door you thought was shut forever. And when you take that step, when you sit down and say, they don't even know where to begin, but I know I need you, that's when healing begins to flow. Because it's not the length of your prayer that heals you. It's the presence of your heart in it. It's the connection, the surrender, the trust. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do isn't to ask for answers. It's to simply say, be with me. That's the kind of conversation that changes everything. That's the kind of connection your soul was built for. And the more you return to it, the more you'll realize that healing isn't a one-time event. It's a journey made up of small, sincere moments of turning back to Him again and again, through words, through whispers, through tears, through silence. And every single time He responds, not with judgment, not with delay, but with mercy, with comfort, with love. Because He never tires of hearing your voice, even when you think you've said too much, or come too often, or fallen too far. His door is always open, and your healing, it's not waiting in some distant future. It's already begun. It began the moment you spoke to Him. And every time you do, it continues. So don't stop. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for the perfect mood or the perfect moment. Just start speaking again and again, because your healing is already unfolding, one conversation at a time. There are days when your heart feels too tired to even cry, when your chest feels too heavy to breathe properly, when the weight of everything you've been holding finally becomes too much. And in those moments, when even your words feel broken, know that you don't need to speak perfectly for Allah to understand you. Even your silence is heard. Even your sigh is known. Even your tears carry the message your tongue cannot form. That's the mercy of turning to the one who doesn't need explanations, who doesn't demand perfection, who doesn't expect eloquence. He just wants sincerity. And maybe you've been praying all along. Maybe you've been doing your best, showing up in your worship, staying hopeful in public, but you still feel like your heart hasn't caught up. Like there's a gap between what you're doing and what you're feeling. That's okay. That's not failure. That's the journey. That's the soul's quiet reminder that it needs something deeper than routine. It needs connection. And that connection begins not in long prayers, not in perfect ritual, but in real, raw conversations with your Creator. The kind of conversations where you say, I'm doing everything I can, and I still feel lost. And in return, without a single word back, you feel seen, you feel held. You feel like someone finally understands the pain you've been carrying around without a name. That's the healing you've been searching for. Not the kind that changes everything in your life instantly, the kind that changes something in you quietly. And the more you speak to Allah like this, like a friend, like a witness to your soul, like the only one who truly knows what you've been through, the more healing you invite into your heart. Because pain is real, and life does get heavy, and some wounds take time. But pain doesn't have to be loud to be valid, and healing doesn't have to be dramatic to be real. Sometimes healing looks like sitting on the floor in the middle of the night with a tear running down your face as you whisper, "Ayah, Allah, I don't even know how to feel better, but I'm here." That's enough. That's more than enough. Because that whisper reaches the skies. That whisper softens the burden. That whisper realigns your soul. And sometimes we forget that healing doesn't come from pretending everything is okay. It comes from finally admitting that it's not. And turning that admission into prayer. It comes from showing up in your most honest, most fragile, most human state and still choosing to speak to Him. And when you do that, you invite into places that have been dark for too long. You let mercy into wounds that no one else can touch. You begin to feel whole again. Not because everything is fixed, because you're finally connected to the one who holds all the pieces. So don't wait for strength to speak. Speak to find your strength. Don't wait to be okay to turn to Him. Turn to Him to become okay. The longer you hold it in, the longer your heart will ache. But every word you release, every tear you allow to fall in His presence, every whisper you let go, it's healing. Slow, steady, sacred healing. And the more you do it, the more you'll feel the return of peace, the softening of pressure, the lifting of pain. Not all at once, but surely. And all because you chose to speak. Keep doing that. Keep choosing Him. Keep letting your heart be hard. Because healing began the moment you spoke to Allah. And every time you do, continues. There's something beautifully transforming that happens when you start turning your emotions into supplication. When you stop running from the pain and start walking through it with Allah by your side, when instead of bottling everything up, you release it into the one who already knows what's been weighing you down. That's where true healing begins. Not in changing your reality overnight, but in changing how your heart carries it. And maybe that's what you've been missing all along. Not a solution, not an escape, not someone to swoop in, make everything right. But someone who listens, who understands, who never gets tired of hearing from you. And the moment you begin to treat your private conversations with Allah as sacred, something inside you shifts. The pain doesn't always leave, but it stops owning you. The sadness doesn't disappear, but it stops defining you. Because now, you've turned it into something powerful. You've made it your way back to the one who heals all things. And sometimes the shortest conversations are the ones that move your soul the most. Ya Allah, I'm tired. Ya Allah, I don't know what to do. Ya Allah, please don't leave me. These aren't just words. They're lifelines. They're proof that even in your most broken state, your heart still knows where home is. And maybe you don't feel strong when you say them. Maybe you cry through them. Maybe you whisper them through clenched teeth and a trembling voice. But that's what makes them sincere. And sincerity is what opens the doors of healing. Not grand gestures, not perfect routines, just honest words from a heart that still wants to hold on. And the more you speak to Allah like this, the more consistent you become. not out of pressure, but out of love. You start realizing that these quiet conversations aren't just your way of surviving. They're your soul's way of returning again and again. And no matter how many times you feel like you're falling apart, you remember that your voice still works. Your tears still count. Your prayers are still heard. That's why every day, every night, every quiet second spent with Allah becomes a thread in the fabric of your healing. Because it's not about how long you pray. It's about how present you are when you do. It's about trusting that your smallest, most vulnerable do can reach the skies and bring down peace you didn't know you needed. And if all you can do is cry, then cry. That is also duya. If all you can do is sit in silence, then sit. That is also remembrance. Allah doesn't measure you the way the world does. He sees your effort. He feels your sincerity. He knows when you're barely holding on. And instead of turning away, He comes closer. That's the love we forget when we feel empty. That's the mercy we ignore when we think we've failed. But the truth is, every time you've spoken to Him, even with a heart full of doubt, even after a week of silence, He never left. And He never will. So speak again. Speak often. Not just when you're broken, but also when you're healing. Because healing isn't a destination. It's a rhythm, a relationship, a return. And the most beautiful thing is that every return starts with something so small, so sincere. A single moment where you open your heart and say, "Why ya Allah, I'm here." And that's all it takes, because healing already started. The moment you began speaking to Allah, there comes a time when you realize that all the things you were chasing, comfort, clarity, healing, relief, were never really outside of you. They were always waiting for you to pause, to breathe, to sit quietly in the presence of your Creator and finally fully speak. And the beauty of it all is that when you speak to Allah, He doesn't interrupt, He doesn't turn away, He doesn't rush you. He listens. He listens like no one else can, like no one else ever has. And even when you feel like your voice is too quiet, too broken, too inconsistent, it still reaches Him. Even when your thoughts are all over the place and your heart feels numb and your emotions make no sense, it still counts. Every word, every tear, every deep breath you take before you whisper something to Him, it all matters, because He is not like people. You don't have to explain everything in perfect detail. You don't need to prove your pain. You don't need to earn your right to be heard. You just need to show up. And in that sacred act of showing up, again and again, something in your soul begins to shift slowly, gently, permanently. You start feeling a kind of calm that isn't tied to answers or outcomes. You start feeling loved, not because your life is easy, because your connection with Him is real. And maybe that's the secret your soul has been trying to remember all this time. That you were never alone, not even for a moment, not even in your darkest hour. You were just one whisper away from being heard, one tear away from being comforted, one breath away from starting your healing again. And now that you've spoken, now that your heart has opened, don't stop. Don't close the door, because the healing you've started doesn't end here. It lives in your daily return. It grows with every silent plea, every whispered prayer, every tearful thank you when things make sense, and even more when they don't. Healing isn't just about pain disappearing. It's about peace settling, even when pain is still present. And that peace, that stillness, deep, unshakable calm, it only comes from Allah. So hold on to it. Keep speaking, keep returning. Let your voice become familiar to the one who loves you most. And on the days you forget, start again. And on the days it hurts, speak again. Because there is no limit, no restriction, no point where he says, that's enough. You could return to him 1,000 times in one day, and he would still respond with mercy, still draw you close, still send peace to your soul. That is your refuge. That is your healing. And that healing, the one you've been chasing, the one you thought you had to earn, the one you thought was so far away, it began not with change in the world around you, but the moment you spoke to Allah. And if your heart is beating differently now, if your breath feels a little deeper, if your soul feels a little more at ease, then know this, your healing is already happening. So nurture it, protect it, let it grow. Speak again tonight and tomorrow. And whenever you feel lost, whenever you feel grateful, whenever you feel like you don't even know what you feel, just speak. Let your words rise. Let your heart be heard. Remember, Allah never tires of you. Not when you're distant, not when you're broken, not when you return again and again. Because to Him, your voice is always welcome. And your healing, it never stopped. It started the moment you spoke to Him. And it will continue for as long as you do.